want to show you the actual TV exposure I got off the back of this press release.
The MCG demolition works are proving to be an unexpected goldmine for a young entrepreneur. He salvaged discarded bits and pieces and is now turning them into unique items of memorabilia.
Rolling out the red carpet and a young man's dream of riches. This precious pile from the now demolished Ponsford stand was discarded by wreckers, but now 21-year-old Peter Williams plans to preserve it forever, saying it was like stumbling on hidden treasure.
I couldn't believe it was just sitting there getting moist in a warehouse that's part of Australia's history and spirit, and it was just literally lying there getting moist.
He spent hours cleaning it and now plans to frame pieces for sale.
They come better than I thought. My original plan was just to obtain some small pieces and do something a bit different, then we came across the carpet.
A few frames have already been made using original timber from floors and seating. He's planning to release 900 pieces, potentially worth well over $250,000.
Mum sort of gave me a little bit of money to help fund the carpet and stuff, and everyone's sort of been very, very pat on the back and well done, and hope it goes well for me.
Peter says 10% of the profit will be donated to the E.J. Whitten Foundation. Heath O'Loughlin, 7 News.
That's using your noodle, isn't it?
And that was pretty cool, wasn't it? Got a great deal of exposure on one of the most watched news shows in the entire country. Now, one thing you'll notice in there, that there was no call to action inside the actual PR exposure I got. There was no website address or anything like that, which is very disappointing, obviously. But I chose to still do that interview, even though I knew they weren't going to give me the actual direct call to action, for a few reasons. The exposure I got was well worth it. I could then piggyback off that on my website and my sales letter with As Seen on Channel 7 News. I then did some other marketing stuff to ensure I still got the exposure I needed off the back of that PR. And also, it was still a bit of fun to be able to say I was on the news. From there, I actually continued to write a series of press releases, which I really encourage you guys to do as well, around the same topic, just in different angles. Ways to actually leverage and tell the same story and get different media outlets. For my local newspapers, I actually put together another press release talking about local Deakin graduate sells MCG for less than $500. So it was a slight spin on the original story, just changed up the press release to target my local media. Deakin is a university that I went to, and the Geelong is a town about an hour or so out of Melbourne, which is where I was based for a lot of the project. So I actually just changed the press release up a little bit and spoke about, a local Geelong graduate is selling the MCG in pieces. And if you read this press release, it's fundamentally exactly the same. The quotes are pretty much the same, the call to action at the end, everything is fundamentally the same in here, except I just tailored it a little bit for the local media I was targeting. And here's another one, talking about signature counterfeiting is ripe, upward of $900 million annually. This is the whole statistic angle that I spoke about earlier. I was able to track down some information about the size of sports memorabilia counterfeiting industry, and I found out that $900 million worth of fake sports memorabilia was sold every year. And the beautiful thing with the piece I was selling was that there was no autographs on there. It was genuine, authentic pieces of Australian sporting history. So I took that angle with this press release, trying to get the same amount of exposure, or the same exposure for my product, just in a different angle. So again, you can read through these and see how I've spoken about my product is different, that the industry is so ripe, that sports memorabilia collectors really have to be careful. And that was the angle I took with this particular press release. And you can see the mammoth amount of exposure I got off the back of these press releases by continually rewriting the angles and resubmitting them to the media. This now leads us on to the question and answer sheet. In another interview I did as part of this whole MCG project, I did a radio interview with a journalist here in Melbourne. And as part of the pre-interview communication, I offered them the question and answer sheet that I wrote up. I wrote the Q&A sheet here that you can see in the same fashion as what I taught you guys to do in one of the earlier videos. Spoke to the producer of the segment and said, look, I've got a Q&A sheet and a bio that might help you out. Let me send it across to you. He was more than happy to accept it because I was helping him do his job. And as you'll hear in this upcoming radio interview, the DJ on air just read the Q&A sheet verbatim, and that introduction as well was purely taken straight out of the press release. So let's have a listen to that, and while you're listening, have a read through and watch the Q&A sheet and see how the interview flows.